those plays when the ball comes to them, guys are getting in front of it. The shortstop especially loved what he's brought to that team. But
Aurelio Martinez. Can go.
I mean, the game that you and I did of theirs, I think it was that La Cueva they played?
Right.
And he converted in the doubleheader 2 6-3 double plays within 2 innings. I mean, that's a guy that you can really put your weight on, that you can really trust to be there defensively. As you mentioned, the pitching's going to be a question, but when you get later into the week, everybody's running into the pitching question. You're going to be wondering whether or not Cam Feist is getting hot for them offensively, and whether or not they just have enough arms to get them through the innings to get the ball into play where their defense can cover it.
Truth be told, in a meaningful game with meaningful at-bats down the stretch, does he have enough protection in that lineup where you even pitch to him?
I mean, if nobody else is doing it for El Dorado, I wouldn't. I would just walk him every day of the week. I mean, we've seen him muscle balls out this season. Cam Feist is a fantastic batter, and if that's, it's like if the Giants only had Barry Bonds, you don't pitch to him, right?
Yeah. Let's move to another guy that is very used to getting pitched around, and then we turn our attention to District 1, and let's start with the Cleveland Storm. Even though they didn't win the district, we'll get to Rio Rancho in a second. But let's talk about Cleveland, since they're a runner-up last year. Anthony DelAngel is obviously the guy I'm talking about. Probably the most electric bat to watch in the state. Maybe him or Braden Reynolds, right? You could make that argument. Talk about the Cleveland Storm.
Well, I actually thought that you were going to be talking about Reynolds since we were in District 2 when you were talking about great batsmen. But yeah, DelAngel, fantastic. The other day when they needed the win over Volcano Vista, he comes out, big home run. You can always expect one out of DelAngel there. But they have, versus this question we're talking about with El Dorado.
Yeah. Who's going to, if I hold up 4, who else is going to scare me in that lineup?
I like the third baseman.
Okay, all right.
And he's been in that lineup for a couple of years. But that the way
that DelAngel's not going to get pitched to in an important game, right? I think we can safely assume if it's a championship game and there's an open base, he's not going to see a pitch to hit.
Yeah, but I mean, what they did, and I think ultimately, unfortunately for them, they lost to Rio Rancho in the other game. But against Cibola, against Farmington, against the rest of that district, the rest of the lineup can get singles, can get doubles, can get balls into play. And yeah, DelAngel's your guy who's going to hit triple after triple, home run after home run, whatever it is. But the rest of that lineup has a high enough average and high enough on-base percentage that you can look to them and say, okay, there's somebody that could put us in danger if, you got 2 guys on and DelAngel's at the plate. The question, do you walk him? Yeah, maybe, but then right behind him, you might be looking at somebody who can knock him in, because the other thing DelAngel does really well is base run.
He does everything well. When he gets out of his car and steps between the lines, there's nothing on a baseball field that kid can't do.
But if he's on first and whoever behind him hits a base hit single, DelAngel's on third at least.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a great point. All right, let's pick up the district champs in that district, and that was again the Rio Rancho Rams. Congratulations to the Rams. Talk about them a little bit. They're a different. I mean, they won the district, and they just win.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like they. I don't know. Not as dominant as in years past. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. You've done more of their games than I. When I've done their games, I've walked away just feeling like, I don't know, not overly impressed. Impressed that they always win. But they're not bludgeoning teams. Talk about Rio Rancho.
No, they're not bludgeoning teams, but what they are doing is consistently putting up runs. And another team that tends not to have bad defense, but I think their pitching depth for Rio Rancho is what you like, is that...
It's probably the closest to La Cueva's depth as far as pitching, right?
I think that's what you look at when you look at Rio Rancho and why they could potentially be a favorite. Why they won the district is that Rio Rancho has more pitchers than pretty much anybody else. But like you say, they're those head-scratching moments, like that
Metro tournament, that Metro championship game between La Cueva and Rio Rancho was ugly.
Yeah,
it was an ugly baseball game for both teams.
I want to look more recently. They were leading Cibola in the 7th, 5-1. They should win that game, right? Any day of the week, and Cibola's another great team. I think that they could potentially be a dark horse this year.
Back against the wall, they kind of had to win that game.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
but Rio Rancho definitely coughed it up.
Yeah, that's the thing is, so obviously Brito, great job in that game for Brito, but you have a 4-run lead in the 7th. you need to be able to put that away. And so that kind of head scratcher is where you sit when you look at the Rio Rancho Rams, because then you lose to Cibola, but then you beat Cleveland on your Friday game, the one to essentially give you the district, because that drops Cleveland down to 3 losses in the district, and you can pretty much put it away if you're Rio Rancho.
I think we're obligated to talk about the Cibola Cougars because our director, Alden Iwani, is a proud Cougar, as are you. So
Cougs.
the Cougs had all this magic to start the season, and people were really high on them, saying this is the sleeper, this is the dark horse. And
Still.
then district play started and really slapped them in the mouth, right? Like,
Yeah.
can they recapture some of that early success as they go into the playoffs here? Because let's face it, a lot of those district teams are going to be in that bracket. They're going to have to play district teams again.
Yeah, and I think that's really a credit to both them and everybody else in this district, is that there's no bad team in District 1 this year, which we really got to find out late as Piedra Vista, Farmington start putting up big wins. Cibola beats Rio Rancho. That district is not bad. I think that with Cibola, they need a little bit more, because I think it's Isaac Harvey's their main pitcher, right? They need a big number 2 behind him, because assuming that we're talking in the first game of the week, Harvey's probably got to pitch so that because they'll be.
And then first round, Harvey pitches Friday, right? Or did they save him for Saturday?
I think you save him. This is the grand question. Either way with him, because
we're talking about, of course, the first round is a best of 3, so you get the home team hosting Friday and then Saturday again, potential doubleheader.
But assuming that Cibola is not going to be a host team,
right?
I
They'll
mean,
be
almost
traveling.
certainly not. So, you're going to be playing against a tough team. No matter who you draw, you probably want to pitch in game 1 so that you can get one win
On Friday.
and not be, or game 2. I mean, but if you haven't pitched him in one of those 2 games.
Well, you can't save them for what if.
Yeah, you
because
can't
then you
save
never
them for
get to
what
what if, right?
But then the question is, who pitches what if for Cibola?
Right. I think I'd throw them right out of the gates. Got to get that game 1 if you're Cibola. So can they regain the magic, do you think?
I mean, I always believe in the Cibola Cougars.
Of course you do. But they've been in every game. So even these games that they've lost in their district, and they've lost a ton of district games, they've been in every single one of them.
Well, they're offensively, it's a team that can always do it. Their
Right.
bats can just come alive. We talked about that 5-1 victory over the Rio Rancho Ram, they ended up winning, 6-5 for that
Right.
one. But then also there was that Farmington game that they played where Farmington came to town, and I think the end score was 11-10 in 11 innings. The one problem Cibola didn't have was their offense coming
Right.
alive. And I believe it was Edmiston who pitched early in that game for Farmington, which is their best pitcher. So Cibola's offense is what's going to have to carry them. When we talk about who's their back or who's the next guy after Harvey, it doesn't really matter as long as those bats are still good. And it's Isaac Britos who I look at on that team. He doesn't look like Liker does, and yet his bat kind of acts similar to his.
Let's talk about some of the out-of-town teams, whichever you want to pick up, Carlsbad, Centennial, or Las Cruces. If you were to make the case for one, which would it be?
I mean, I just look at the history of Carlsbad, and I got to go that way. But I'll be perfectly honest, I was pretty much in Silver City for most of the chances I had to look at any of those teams, so I haven't really got a good chance to look at any of them.
Well, I mean, they got the bats to do it, certainly. I think pitching depth, it's fine there. Actually, they got a nice arm out of the bullpen that just, when we saw them in Rio Rancho, he had just come over from basketball, and this guy's stuff was filthy. Jesus and I were watching just the slider, the cutter, and we were like, who is this kid? We started asking around on the concourse there at Rio Rancho, and some of the Carlsbad parents saying, he just came out from basketball, and filthy stuff out of the bullpen. So I would imagine he would be closing games for Carlsbad, I would think. And like you said, the tradition. Coach Magaha's there now. He does a phenomenal job. Mm-hmm. That's definitely a team. It would not surprise me if they spoiled the All-Metro party and made their way to a championship, right? I mean, they clean slate in district, 6-0, 21-5 record. They were the runner-up they were here for the Puentes, which we saw. So you got a chance to see them, right? The typical Carlsbad team.
And most important about that is they came up and play these difficult teams, right? So, and we don't talk about it enough with baseball and softball, is whether or not teams are playing against that more difficult, just competition.
Right.
Because the way that districts really roll for a lot of these, you can really get stuck down in your district only playing against small teams and then just not have that opportunity to play against top groups.
Right. Don't forget, send us your watch parties at ProView TV.
Got any yet?
We have one, but we'll let some pile up. If our director Jason Pohl, if you have the criteria, if we could throw that up there for selection. Remember, it's pretty. It's the same, right?
Yeah, it doesn't change.
It doesn't really change. Finish in regular season district play, head-to-head matchups, wins against district champions, regardless of class, overall record, max preps rankings, and then that final coaches poll at the end of the season. If there is a tie, head-to-head is used to break the tie first, and then after that, it'll be the max prep, your max prep Freeman rankings. I know those guys that are watching. There's a watch party going on. Perfect timing. Let's talk about my Rio Grande Ravens.
Hey,
they're
Rio
watching
Grande Ravens.
in Orlando Griego's restaurant there at Perico's. Maybe we can head over there after, right?
Oh, is that where the after party is
Drive
at?
over to Perico's, maybe. Coach Griego will take care of us.
Sure.
All right, so let's talk, before we start getting into brackets, and since the Ravens are watching, we'll get that up in a second. We'll get those guys up there, give them some love. They've won the district again. Congratulations to the Ravens and Orlando
tight
Griego.
district, too.
Yeah.
Tight district fight.
I think most people thought Los Lunas might be the favorite going into that district because they returned pretty much everybody. But to be the man, you got to beat the man, and Rio Grande's the man in that district. So they win the district again. But again, it's with an overall record that's 17-9 because they play such a tough schedule. So here's the $1 million question: do the Rio Grande Ravens get a first-round home game, in your opinion?
I don't think so. What's funny is I was talking to a coach in that district the other day, and he was mentioning no matter who you are, hey, look, it's the Eunice Cardinals softball team.
That's right. Lady Cardinals are right there, waiting to see where they're going. I know their baseball team, I believe, got the #1 seed.
Yeah.
So shout out to the Eunice Cardinals and the Ravens so far. But anyway, pick up your point about the Ravens.
Yeah, no. So everybody thinks that they probably should be a little bit higher up, no matter what, right? Every coach, every team believes that what they got was ultimately not as high as they'd hoped, and I think unfortunately this is going to be a year of that for Rio Grande. They're probably going to slip to a traveling game for their first ones. The big thing about those though is, you have to play on the road. If they are lucky, they'll be playing against somebody in the metro area.
But that is a legitimate home field advantage if they could host, because one, they could play under the lights on Friday. Not every team's used to playing under the lights, right? And the Ravens play well at home. They get a pretty nice crowd over there. It's a great baseball environment. What about Los Lunas? Can you make a case for the Tigers? They finished second in the district. High hopes for Los Lunas heading into the season.
Yeah.
Would it be fair to say they underperformed a little bit?
Well, yeah, I think that, as you mentioned, we all kind of thought that they would be leading that district, but, still building up on that side, and I don't think I see a big case for them, assuming that they're also going to be traveling for the first one. And for both, I think the question is, are you going to end up getting, kind of a mid-level spot where you're playing against a Cleveland in the metro area, or are you going to be traveling down south? Are you going to be playing against Carlsbad,
Right. That's not a trip you want to make.
No.
In the first round, that's for sure.
Not in the first round. You don't want to have to run all the way across the state. I mean, we saw it with teams having to go to Centennial before as well, like making that long trip. The metro teams just tend not to be as used to doing that, getting on the bus and just traveling.
Right. We'll take our first break of the day. When we return, we'll have some brackets for you. On the other side, again, if you're watching with us, send us your watch party pictures at ProView TV. We'll be right back.
We've been trained, conditioned, and rewarded for doing more. But people weren't designed for all that doing. Our bodies need to settle into nothing from time to time. Into nothing at all. In a world obsessed with doing more, we invite you to undo.
The Yeller Sub, located on 7200 Montgomery Boulevard, serves breakfast all day long along with classic hot and cold subs. Don't forget about our shakes, malts and floats made with your favorite Bluebell ice cream. 45 years and still going strong. Come on down to the Yeller Sub, official sandwich of ProView Networks.
I'm David C. Chavis, personal injury attorney. Our law firm was founded by my father, Thibaut J. Chavis, with one goal: to get New Mexicans the help they need. That's why we built a different kind of law firm. We focus on family values, dedicated service, and we make a real contribution by giving back to our communities. We can't change what happened to you or your loved ones, but we can help you get back on the road to recovery. We're by your side, and we're still as local as red and green.
We've been trained, conditioned, and rewarded for doing more. But people weren't designed for all that doing. Our bodies need to settle into nothing from time to time. Into nothing at all. In a world obsessed with doing more, we invite you to undo.
To our beautiful and expansive Albuquerque studios here at ProView Networks. It's the Bracket Breakdown Show. That's Aaron Rivera. I'm Sebastian Noel. We do have some brackets to pass along to you. Softball first, I believe, Jason. Whatever you throw up, we'll go through. It's the A to 2A softball. Congratulations to the number 1 seed. Estancia, they get that first round bye there. And then the 8-9 is Raton and Mesilla Valley. Laguna Acoma and Eunice. That's the 5-12. Eunice was watching. They see where they'll be heading. Rehoboth Christian, the 4 seed, the bye. And then the 3 seed is Lordsburg, bye there. Hojo Academy gets the 6. The 11 is the Panthers, the Lady Panthers of Jal. The 7-10 features Mora and Capitan. The bye belongs to Loving at the bottom. They're the number 2 seed. Estancia, not much of a surprise there to get the number 1 seed. Loving right behind them. I think this is the 2 teams everyone anticipated.
Sure.
Kind of on a collision course at the end of the season, Aaron.
Yeah, it'd be super cool for the Estancia side. As we talked about right at the beginning of this broadcast, everybody's been chasing the Bears all year, right?
Yeah.
So the Estancia Bears have not been in the state championship before. So this would be their first season if they can make it. So just to remind people, the way that it works is first you play, if you are in the 5 through 10 spots, first you play that first round of games before you get into the actual bracket. So that's why you see those byes, right? So Estancia, Rehoboth, Loving, and Lordsburg, they all advance automatically. It's that first round, their home playoff games.
You should
for
also
Raton.
You should also log on to nmact.org to get that schedule, or Max Preps, because they're doing first round pods this year. So, for example, the 1 seed, and I think, I'm not sure if this goes all the way down to A2A, Aaron. We'll check during the commercial. But I know at the higher level, for example, the 1 seed, the pod system, that means obviously it wouldn't happen in A to 2A because there's so many byes, right? But as you get into the bigger classes, the 1 seed hosts the pod with those 4 teams, then the 4 seed hosts the pod with those 2. So
yes,
depending on your team and what classification, check your Max Prep schedule, because softball schedules are very confusing.
They are, but exactly how you just described it. So Estancia is going to host Raton and Mesilla Valley playing first, and then whoever wins that plays against Estancia, and then after that, it will all move over to Los Altos this year. So we're not playing in Rio Rancho this year. We're playing in Los Altos if you're in the A to 2A softball. So a little bit different.
That's good. As an Albuquerque citizen, I'm glad to see our tax dollars stay right here in the city.
Well,
and Los Altos Park, beautiful renovations out there.
They spent all that money specifically for stuff just like this. So it is good to see.
Much nicer facility. So since it's renovated, beautifully.
For the A2A. So there still will be, Cleveland will still host games as well in the higher seeds. But, for the A2A schools, you are going to be at Los Altos this year, right. So it'll also help cut down on some of the insanity that we've experienced in the past, where everybody's trying to pile into just the 2 facilities. But I think as far as the actual levels go, so Estancia and Loving are the favorites, right? So Loving has been in the championship every single season since 2015.
Right.
Loving are the most successful team in state softball history, right? So it kind of makes you wonder if it is the crash course of the 1 and the 2 seed here. Who's David and who's Goliath? Because obviously Estancia this season has been pretty much unbeatable here at this level of softball. I mean, they're going to be walking in 23-2, where Loving is just 19-6. So is Estancia Goliath here, or is Loving the team that wins every year, that goes every year? That's got to be Goliath, right?
Hard to bet against the Falcons.
It's
in
really hard
state
to pick
tournament
against
play,
Loving.
Right? Let's move ahead to 3A softball if we can. There's the number 1 seed at the top. It's the Dexter Demons. Not much of a surprise there. Tularosa and Tehachapi is the 8-9 opposite of the Demons. The 5 seed is Robertson. They'll have Wingate as the 12th, and that's the matchup that's opposite of the 4 seed St. Michael's, who has that bye. And then at the bottom, there's the West Las Vegas, the 3. Opposite of that, 3 seed is the 6-11, which features the Eagles of Navajo Prep in Hatch Valley. And then the 2 seed is Cobre at the bottom there, and opposite of that 2 seed is the 7-10, which is Ruidoso and Santa Fe Indian. Again, one district very heavily represented here.
I wonder which district it
Yeah,
is.
right.
Is it the one that has a team in the state championship every year for the last 5 years?
Yeah, it seems like every sport, it doesn't matter, right? That district dominates. All right, let's go through this. I mean, Dexter, obviously, you anticipated them getting the 1 seed.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. But Cobre's right there.
Yeah, and I really do like Cobre at this level. And then West Las Vegas, obviously, there's a little bit of turmoil going on over there. But West was my favorite in this up until some of that stuff was going down. But I gotta like Cobre. I mean,
It's hard to believe that there could be turmoil up north.
No comment on that, but as a Norteño. But, I really do like, I think Cobre is another one of those teams that's just been so dominant as of late. You know, when you look out through softball, teams like Carlsbad, teams like Artesia, West Las Vegas has been among these teams. Cobre is absolutely in that same breed of teams for softball.
Since we're talking Norteño sports, shout out to Coach Mike Dominguez, the new head coach of the Northern New Mexico Eagles.
Yeah, congrats, Mike.
Had to get that in there. Any upsets here? I mean, any team that you think outside the top 3 or 4 that could make a case? I'm looking at Robertson. How far do you think they could get?
I don't like Robertson as an upset team. I like West over Cobre the first time as the upset. I think Cobre comes back and makes their way into the championship, and I like Cobre in a 2-game championship.
All right. Let's skip ahead to 4A softball now, and let's take a look at that. Number 1 seed, no surprise there.
Nope.
You talk about royalty. It's Silver, and they'll get the 16 Valencia. So this is... again, the 1-16 matchup in the opening round, the 8-9. This is where the pod system comes into play.
Be bigger, right?
So you can watch 2 games at one site in particular. So if you go to Silver, I believe Silver will actually host the pod, so you'll watch Kirtland Central and St. Pius duel it out before Silver or after, however the schedule works. The 8-9 is Kirtland Central and St. Pius, so Pius just misses out on that home game. The 5-12, it features Goddard, the Rockets, against Mayamura, the Lady Patriots. The 13 seed is the Chargers of Albuquerque Academy. They'll get the 4 seed Aztec. The number 3 seed is Lovington. They'll be hosting Moriarty, the 14. The 6-11 features Los Alamos. The Hilltoppers will face Bernalillo, the Spartans, on the road in the opening round. The 7-10 features Gallup and Belen. And then at the bottom, there's the 2 seed Artesia against the 15 Deming. No surprise, 1-2, Silver Artesia. That's the matchup you kind of expect at the beginning of, it seems like, every season.
Yeah.
And they almost always oblige, right?
Yeah, well, it's always them, Artesia, Gallup, of course. We can't leave them out this season, just the 7. But Gallup, another team you got to watch out for. And then Lovington this season. But, I mean, when you look at the Silver and the Artesia side, both of them are exactly what you like out of a championship team, right? They have multiple pitchers who pitched 50-plus innings this season. Right. And, for Silver, it is Alvarado and Azariah Madrid. Both of them over 60 innings pitched. Both of them under 3 ERAs.
And in a
this is the championship team.
softball bracket, you get 2 arms, they can take you all the way through, right?
Absolutely.
We've seen teams do it with 1.
Yeah, and what I like in 4 and 5A, I think it's more important than anywhere else that you have two arms, because you're eventually going to, in this double elimination bracket, have your best pitcher shelled. Unless your best pitcher is one of the top pitchers in the country, you're going to have your best pitcher shelled at some point. In 4 and 5A, it's going to happen. You're going to come against a big team, and either they're going to have to come out of the game, you're going to have to trust somebody else to pick up the ball and pitch you guys in, out of a game or out of a jam, or you're going to have to just leave that pitcher in and hope that they can regain their confidence. So if you have two pitchers, it allows you to not force that player to sit there and continue getting shelled. And with Silver, as I mentioned, Alvarado and Madrid. For the Artesia Bulldogs, it is Katrin Marquez and Caden Apodaca, and both of those, again, more than 60 innings pitched, basically 70 innings pitched for both of them, and both of them have less than 5 ERA, with Apodaca having a less than 2 ERA. Right. So, great pitching arms for them. That's kind of why you look at them. But I also got to point out that number 3 seed, Lovington. That's an offensive dominant team.
Yeah.
And a lot of seniors on that team. That's a team both pitching and offensively. Lovington is super, super experienced. They pushed a lot this year. So I look at that 3 seed and I think, that could be a team that breaks through, and just advances into the championship, forcing Silver or Artesia into that consolation bracket.
And Lovington and Artesia obviously geographically pretty close, so that won't be a strange matchup for them at all.
No.
Anything like that at all. Let's move ahead to the 5A bracket here. The number 1 seed, no surprise there. It's Centennial. Congratulations to the Hawks. They'll get the number 16 team, the El Dorado Eagles, squeaking in at 16. The 8-9 matchup features Los Lunas and Atrisco Heritage Academy. It'll be the Tigers against the Jags there. The 5 seed, it's Mayfield. They'll get the 12 seed, Sandia, the Matadors. A tough matchup there against Mayfield in the opening round. The 4-13 features Carlsbad and Hobbs. That's an interesting matchup there of two southern teams. The 3-14, it's Cibola, the Cougars. They'll get Albuquerque High in the opening round. The 6-11's Alamogordo and Rio Rancho. That's an interesting matchup there. And then the 7-10's Piedra Vista against Las Cruces. At the bottom, the 2 seed, it's La Cueva against Oregon Mountain. Where do you want to start?
I want to start at the 7-10 game because Piedra Vista obviously coming in second in that District 1, which, again, massive district there. Cibola, Rio Rancho, Cleveland, Piedra Vista, Farmington playing great as well, and Volcano. But Piedra Vista lose out on the district because they dropped 2 games to the Cibola Cougars. And I think that if they, it's a tough bye for them at 18-7-1, but really their only major losses in the state of New Mexico come to Cibola. Most of their losses coming out of state games. And I think getting La Cueva as early on, assuming they can beat Las Cruces, getting La Cueva in that early pods is going to make it a little bit more difficult for Piedra Vista. I thought that they were going to be one of the sleepers that I was looking at.
I will say this, and I'm interested to see your thoughts. If you're Centennial and looking at this from the 1 seed perspective, I think all the teams that scare you, if you're Centennial, they're definitely on the opposite side of the bracket.
That's exactly why I start with Piedra Vista, because I was thinking Piedra Vista,
Cibola, La
Cueva, those are the teams.
Even Alamogordo, that's a good team.
Yeah, but Centennial dominated.
Alamogordo it's true.
So the average score of those games between Alamogordo and Centennial was 12.5 to 3.
Right.
Every game. So they played them 3 times and just.
I don't see a scenario where Centennial doesn't get through there at the top of that bracket.
The nice part for softball with the double elimination bracket is, so while they're in the top of the bracket, before they can get into the championship game, they have to play against La Cueva, Cibola,
right.
or if Piedra Vista beats La Cueva, whether that's possible, whoever wins on this bottom side of the bracket right here will play Centennial for a chance into the straight championship.
I like how you did. You got that. Like, you could have a future as a weatherman.
I haven't got the right suit on.
Yeah, if this sports thing doesn't work out for you, that's really good. You did that well. All right, take a time out here. A couple things before we go to break, though. If you're watching at ProView TV, send us those watch parties. More importantly,
we didn't pick anybody on the championship.
No, yeah, we're not picking anymore.
Okay.
You know what? There's our guys at Rio Grande watching at Pericos. I've just decided, Aaron, we can't pick games anymore. We just pissed too many people off, it turns out. two things. One, send us those pictures if you're watching. And two, these games will all be on the always reliable NFHS network. So be sure to get your NFHS network pass, a very easy to navigate website to easily find games that are archived forever on the NFHS network. That's where you can catch the entire state tournament. We'll be right back with more brackets.
You followed him from the first day he signed with the team. You remember the day he poured in 63 points? The night he played a sold-out concert to 30,000 people. The day he gave his infamous speech. That's why you believe in heroes. That's why you remember and collect their memorabilia. All in autographs, where you can meet some of the greats, collect some of the greats, and share your own legacy. Visit All In Autographs, where you can celebrate the great and have your own piece of history.
Don't sacrifice quality and flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, red and green chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier sweet rolls. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenprideabq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs are proud supporters of ProView Sports.
We've been trained, conditioned, and rewarded for doing more. But people weren't designed for all that doing. Our bodies need to settle into nothing from time to time. Into nothing at all. In a world obsessed with doing more, we invite you to undo.
I might not be in the cage as much anymore. Just like riding a bicycle, I can pick up the fight from where I left off. I'm not some slick-haired outsider posing with borrowed gloves. I grew up here. New Mexico is in my blood. I'm a New Mexican fighting for other New Mexicans. I'm Adam Oki. I'll be your champion in the courtroom.
Rudy's is a proud supporter of ProView Networks.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walk up to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number 1. Cover it with green stuff, 1 scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of ProView Networks.
Back with our resident meteorologist, Aaron Herrera. Hopefully we have sunshine and clear skies coming through for next week. Can you look at our 5-day?
I'm going to go ahead and give you a prediction that today it's either going to rain or not rain, and you can take that to the books.
All right, let's take a look at some brackets. Baseball now. We're done with softball. 1A baseball, the Magdalena Steers are the number 1 seed. Congratulations to them. They'll have that first round bye. 5-4 is Grady against Melrose. The 3-6 is Logan and Elida. The bye to the number 2 seed, Gateway Christian. Can anyone stop the Steers in this 1A bracket?
No. I mean, and the gulf right now between them all is kind of massive, right? So it's 18-3 is where Magdalena sits, and everybody else is kind of chasing. Right. 4 or 5 games behind that.
Never count out the Melrose Buffaloes.
No, you can never count out them, and I shouldn't count out Gateway Christian either, because Gateway's been pretty, a team that makes the championship pretty much every single year. But this is just a season, for Candelaria, for Zamora, for Magdalena. This is the year.
But you know what?
They're really favored.
You kind of never know what's going to happen in 1A baseball, because one thing I've learned about the lower classifications for baseball is the lack of pitching depth. Mm-hmm. It's the championship game; those can be painful. Yeah. I mean, you're just scratching together outs. There's no way your number 1 starter's available. So it's 8th graders, it's freshmen, it's Johnny Olstaff, and you
that's-
just got to get there, right?
That's why it's such a big advantage for Magdalena and Gateway Christian who get this first round bye, right? But the thing that Magdalena has is 2 pitchers and a third.
Right.
So 2 guys on the staff that have pitched over 40 innings this year, 1 guy on the staff who's pitched about half as much. So if you have 2 pitchers and another one who, he's just kind of coming up as a second or as a third option, that's what separates these teams. And that's why this team is 18-3 this season,
Right.
is that they have pitching depth that not everybody else has in single A.
Let's move ahead to 2A baseball.
Do
No
we have
surprise
to?
I've been waiting to talk about some 2A baseball because that means we get to talk about my Eunice Cardinals,
Your
Aaron.
Eunice
And
Cardinals.
I'm a big Eunice Cardinals fan, right? In their another phenomenal season. So this is the La Cueva Bears of the small schools, in my opinion. They dominate baseball like that. They dominate football. They're very good at girls basketball. Had its heyday as well. So, let's go through the bracket. You start stewing on my question, which will be, can anyone beat Eunice? They get a bye in the opening round opposite the 8-9 matchup, which features Raton and McCurdy. The 5-12 is Loving, the Falcons. They'll get the Wolverines of Texaco. The bye belongs to the 4-seed Mesilla Valley. The 3-seed, it's Hojo Academy. They'll get the bye as well. The 6 is Rehoboth Christian as they host the Rattlers from Tucumcari. The 7-10 features Oak Grove and Laguna Acoma. The bye goes to the number 2 seed Santa Rosa. Eunice and Santa Rosa, it's a bitter, bitter rivalry. Will we see this rivalry play out for the championship?
Yes. Although, of the teams that we're looking at here in the 2A bracket, Eunice did land with Loving on their side of the bracket. Now, of course, they beat Loving the majority of the times they played this season.
Right.
But Loving did get 1 victory over Eunice this year. So if we're going to see a bracket breaker, I think it's coming out of that number 5.
Well, a broken
Loving.
clock is right twice a day, Aaron. Let me tell you more
Might
about
as
my
well
Eunice
be.
Cardinals, okay?
All right, go ahead.
So the reason they're so good, not only because, they're just excellent, right? That's what they do, baseball, right? Baseball and oil money, that's what they do.
Football.
And football, right? But geographically where they're set, they always play up during the early season. So you look at their early season schedule, they play teams like Artesia, they play teams like Nimi, they'll even occasionally play Roswell some years, right? So they're always battle tested by the time this tournament gets here.
Well, I'm looking at it right now, and it's actually they're dropping down. They're playing Gateway Christian.
All right.
They're playing Loving. They are playing Lovington.
Those are the number 1 seeds in those brackets.
That's true. But no, I mean, it is ultimately, that is a team that goes every year. There's a reason why Eunice and Santa Rosa, you talked about Eunice being the La Cueva of the lower classes. If that's the case, then I think Santa Rosa could at least make a case for being the Cleveland, or the way Centennial's been floating up right now in the upper class, where Santa Rosa, also really good at football, tends to be really good at basketball, and in baseball they have a chance every single season.
All right, Aaron.
But the actual question,
Craft that one more. Take that one back to the drawing board. Let's find a better comparison than Santa Rosa and Cleveland. All right, you can do better. Craft that one more.
who would you compare?
I want to talk about the 5-12 matchup. That's not an easy opening round matchup for Loving.
No. Well, Texaco, I think, is one of those teams that Loving's going to have to get through. But the advantage here is, for Loving, is it's at home, correct?
No, I think, yeah. No, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so you get that home game. That's where you have to get your advantage, right?
Yeah, you would think. All right, 3A. Let's look at 3A baseball here. The number 1 seed, it's Nimi. No surprise there. Congratulations to the boys down in Roswell. They're the 1 seed. They have a bye opposite the 8-9 matchup, which features Cobre and Sandia Prep. So the Sun Devils will be going on the road in the opening round. The 5-12 is West Las Vegas against Navajo Prep. St. Michael's grabs a bye as the 4 seed. 3 seed Robertson also gets a bye, again, out of that same district. 6-11 features Tularosa and Ruidoso, so the Warriors will hit the road to go to Tularosa. Santa Fe Indian School's the 7. They get Hatch Valley the 10. The bye goes to East Mountain. That's a team that was maybe hoping they would get that 1 seed, see their name called, right? What a fantastic season for the Timberwolves so far at East Mountain. Take us through this a little bit, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say that the number 1 and 2 seed are two teams that 4 or 5 years ago we weren't talking about them as number 1 and 2 seeds. But East Mountain has gotten better. I mean, every single year since COVID that I've seen East Mountain,
Right.
they get a little bit better and better, and that's why you talk about them hoping that they could get that number 1 seed. It's not to be, they got the max prep rankings, but I don't think they had the coaches poll the last one that I saw. And records-wise, they're basically neck and neck, but Nimi has one less game and one less loss. So that's where that interesting side for it goes. The St. Mike's and Robertson.
Who could trip up the high seeds here, Aaron?
Well, it's just getting to St. Mike's and Robertson are your favorites on it. If I'm East Mountain, I'm a little bit more worried, though. And that's why they sit the way they do, right? But, while St. Mike's has a little bit better record, I think Robertson has a bit more of the eye test on which one of them is going to actually be the top team if you're 2 or the 1 seed don't want to get into. But Santa Fe Indian as well. Every year I see Santa Fe Indian in the tournament. Every year I see Santa Fe Indian breaking brackets and pushing their way through.
Sandia Prep's an interesting one at number 9 there. I mean, that's a team that, yes, their heyday may be a little past, right? Mm-hmm. They're not the dominant powerhouse they once were, but they've made some runs, right? Like, can they bottle this and have a special week? I mean, obviously they're right opposite the 1 seed. Is it possible, or do they even get past Cobra? Do you think?
I don't believe so, and I mean it's tough. First year coach for them, as their head coach went over to Volcano Vista. So it is a tough run for them, but I don't know if they get past Cobra. Just like in softball, the Cobra baseball team, it's the Cobra Indians, right?
That's right.
They also are a team that likes to break through brackets. I think for Cobra, they're a little unfortunate to get the 8th spot instead of somewhere they could do a little bit more running than the 5 or even the 12. They would have a better chance, I think.
St. Michael's potentially gets district rival West Las Vegas right away in the second round. That's you always try to avoid your district, but when your whole district makes it, it's impossible.
No, completely impossible.
But that would make for an interesting one, right?
Yeah, but St. Michael's has also just really tooled through West Las Vegas every time that they've played. They finished out the season against each other, beat West Las Vegas 6-1. If I'm St. Mike's, I love where I just ended up in the bracket because you get 1 game bye first, then just 1 game before you have to play against either Nimi or Cobra, whoever comes out there in the quarterfinals.
Right. Let's move ahead to 4A baseball. The 1 seed, it's Artesia against the number 16, Bernalillo. The 8-9, the Valley Vikings. Chad Kuhn gets the home game against Hope Christian. 5-12 is Los Alamos. The Hilltoppers against the Rockets from Goddard. The 4, it's Belen. The Eagles, they get Chaparral, the 13. The 3-14 is Academy against Lovington. The 6-11, it's Bloomfield against Deming. The 7-10 is the Pirates from Grants against Santa Teresa. And the 2 seed is St. Pius against the 15, Kirtland Central. Artesia and St. Pius, 2 really good teams at the top of this bracket.
Yeah, as always, obviously Artesia in the championships last year lost to Grants. Grants did graduate out some fantastic talent there. But Artesia, I mean, they also graduated out great talent, and yet it doesn't look like they did. Like, you had that team last year where all the same seniors that were on the football team, on the basketball team, and then on the baseball team, they all graduate out, and Artesia's back, same look. They're in the state championship for football. They're in the state championship for basketball, and, they're coming here for baseball as the top seed again. So, I mean, the well just seems infinite in southeast New Mexico.
Let's talk about that 8-9 a little bit. That could be a very fun opening round matchup. 2 very evenly matched teams there. It's a Valley team that Coach Kuhn relies heavily on 1 starter, and it's kind of just try to piece things together when he's not on the hill, right? But those teams, they know each other. That one just jumped out for a first round game that I'd like to watch.
Yeah, you say that it's fun. I don't know if it's going to be fun for either head coach there, especially because my understanding is this is Coach Kuhn's last season, right? So, lots of nerves are going to be going on there all throughout. that's if you're playing on that field, if you're a parent of one of the kids on that is going to be one of the most nerve-wracking games you look at, as we hope for out of the 8 and 9, right? You want to have two very good teams in that situation, and of course, it's not like Hope Christian's going to be traveling across the state, unlike some of the folks that we'll be talking about in a little bit, like say on the 3 and 14.
You're getting good at that.
Lovington having to travel all the way up here, that's like a 4 or 5 hour drive or whatever it is. 4 hour drive, I think. That's a long way, a long trip to then get off the bus and have to play a game and then potentially stay overnight.
Let's look at the bottom of that bracket. You have a potential of Albuquerque Academy St. Pius. I know you always love any Albuquerque St. Pius matchup, whether it's soccer, basketball, whatever. Those two teams, usually they don't like each other that much. That's a rivalry, and I don't know. I would predict that to go all the way through 3-2 at the semis there. What do you think? Do you think those two will hook up?
I mean, the grand question is going to be Grants. Obviously, they didn't have the regular season success against St. Pius that they had hoped for, but you do wonder. You say, hey, we're the defending state champions. We just got dropped to the 7th seed this time. That's if you're playing in Grants, you're going to say, hey, I'm getting disrespected on this. Like, our season didn't go how we'd expected it to, but we should have got a little bit better than this. The coaches pulled max preps, might have knocked us down a little bit more than what we deserved. So they're going to be ready and firing to go. Plus, they get the home game for the first round before they come up here. And then, one of the issues that I've noticed for 4A is that it is that 2-7 matchup, at least in years past from what I remember, that ends up with that sun coming down in right field on that one field, as all the games are going to be at that baseball complex again this season, and that one field does tend to be the problem, and it's usually during a 4A game.
Meteorologist Aaron Vera, folks. Weather.
I got a book that says weather on it at home.
That's the Jennifer Reardon Be Kind Sports Complex. If you're heading out there...
Spark kindness.
Yes.
Spark kindness.
Please leave early. The only thing not kind out there is parking.
Nope.
So you got to experience that last year.
Or the sun. Also bring lots of sunscreen.
Hopefully you weren't one of those people that got their cars towed or ticketed last year, because I know several did. So parking is at a premium at the Reardon Complex. Let's move to 5A then, the big 5A baseball bracket, which we talked a lot about we talked a lot about this, and I think we hit a lot of these teams. But here's the matchups that we've been waiting for. The number 1 seed is still the Cueva Bears. Congratulations to Gerard Pineda and his Bears. They'll get the 16 seed Las Cruces, so Cruces will travel up to face the Bears. The 8-9, it's Volcano Vista and Los Lunas. That's an interesting matchup there in the second round, potentially.
Yeah, and, it gets to that question about who's pitching when, right? So Volcano Vista, are they going to rely on Aaron early on when you play? If Los Lunas loses to Volcano and Volcano's playing against La Cueva, are you going to put Aaron Sanchez in for that first game? You kind of have to, right? He's your best guy. He's your lefty.
Let's talk about that more. If you're going to get La Cueva, I think it has to be in the quarterfinals, right?
Yeah,
it has to be when an ace is available. Because if we move ahead to the semis or the championships, where whoever they end up facing, chances are the number 1 starter for that team's not available. If you're going to knock out the Bears, I think it has to be early with someone's ace in the quarterfinals. So it would either be with Volcano or Los Lunas' ace in that quarter. After that, I think it's much tougher to knock out the Bears, because they'll have a very good starter going as their second and third starter of that week.
So then here's my question to you. So if you're La Cueva and you got Volcano Vista, who are you pitching?
Gerard Pineda has forgotten more about baseball than I have.
Yeah, of course.
So I hate to even do this and put this out on the record, but if I was kind of setting up my pitching staff, I would save Burdette for the championship. So I would go Blomker in the quarters.
Blomker, and then, if it's a tight game and he's having to pitch a lot of pitches, that's where do you, at that point, start to bring him in. But, of course, that's all problems for Gerard Pineda and Scott Brandt for Volcano Vista, assuming that they do get past Los Lunas. But, we talk about that. It's Sanchez who you'd go for if you're Volcano Vista. He's their best pitcher. But then My problem for that is you kind of have to save some pitches for Sanchez if you want to do anything. And Coach Brandt is obviously a very successful coach, comes from Sandia Prep where he won state championships.
The dream scenario is in that quarterfinal, you get off to a huge lead and you can pull your starter before, 40 pitches, right?
Yeah.
So that's the dream scenario. But, man, are you rolling the dice when you do that.
Yeah, well, and against La Cueva, that's a difficult proposition. Volcano, have some good offensive play, but really they lean heavily on Noah Massey, right? Noah Massey's their big clutch guy, and the way that they played, especially in district, was the rest of the guys are trying to get on for Noah Massey to knock that really big hit to get them those runs. But that's it. I mean, that one's ultimately just the difficult spot. If you're Volcano Vista, can they do it? I think that there is a possibility. There's always a possibility, but of course nobody wants to. We started out talking about this. Nobody wants to play La Cueva.
Right. The 5-seed El Dorado, they get the 12-seed Oregon Mountain. The 4-seed, it's Cleveland, the Storm. They get Mayfield. Let's look at those two matchups. What a job, again. I know we talked about Coach Romero already, but to think that this El Dorado team is now back to a 5-seed, it was special. He's the second coach, I believe. No, third coach.
Second coach.
Third, I think. They had Coach Robertson there. Then they went with the La Cueva Bear. That's not going to work. You hire a Bear to coach the Eagles? Come on. Right? So now Reed Fiegel was there. Now Ambrose Romero's there. What a job Ambrose has done. They're right there. They're a 5-seed, man. Talk about those two matchups.
Well, yeah, obviously and Mayfield doing well, now moving back up to the 5A. But, either one of them, it's the question of Cleveland versus El Dorado, and I just think Cleveland has better pitching and better offense. Coach Romero's done a fantastic job, but that's a tough train to run into with Cleveland. And Cleveland getting dropped to the 4-seed, I think they're going to feel a little bit robbed there. Obviously they didn't win their district, but still they were right there, and it wasn't until that Friday game with the Rams that they lose that district.
So no championship rematch because Cleveland and La Cueva are on the same side. The 3-seed is Carlsbad. They have the 14-seed Cibola. You talked about it. That's the toughest road trip you could get if you're a Metro team.
Yeah.
Is having to go to Carlsbad, and it's the Cougars that'll have to make that trip. Sandia's the 6-seed, 11-seed Piedra Vista. So both of those teams, that's a tough home game for Sandia, and even tougher road task for Cibola.
Well, and I think what's interesting about it, too, for Cibola, this is, with the new districts, this is the first year that they actually had to travel in district, right? So up until, they had Piedra Vista and Farmington in district a few years back, but it's been a while since then. And now they've been playing Farmington and Piedra Vista. So the boys do have some experience this season getting on the bus and traveling. Unfortunately for Cibola, the last time they did that, they kind of got shellacked against it was Piedra Vista that they went and visited. They kind of got beaten around in that one. So Carlsbad, I'm really liking that look. And then for the same reason, Piedra Vista's used to traveling, and they've done pretty well on the road this season. So them visiting Sandia, and at the current state, as we talked about earlier on, Sandia
needs a mental reset, right?
Yeah.
They lose 4 in a row. They get dominated by La Cueva. That's a team that they might be right for an opening round upset there. The bottom, it's 7, Centennial. They'll get the home game against Rio Grande. So the Ravens, despite being district champions, will hit the road in the opening round. The 2-seed is Rio Rancho. They'll get to host Farmington. That's a district game there. So talking about those two matchups at the bottom of that bracket.
I guess I'm a little confused because Rio Grande won the district, but they're below Los Lunas.
Well, they tied, same record, so they won the district by run differential.
Tied 7-1.
So
I thought that you'd still get to keep the.
So the rule is when the two teams tie, they break the tie for the trophy by run differential. Rio Grande wins the district, and they're recognized as the champs. Because of the run differential, but the NMAA can seed either one higher, and obviously they chose to seed Los Lunas higher. Either way, it would have been a road game, right?
Yeah, either way, but I feel like Rio Grande, unfortunately, the boys in the South Valley always tend to feel like they get the raw end of stuff, and they kind of get the raw end of this one, right? So instead of traveling down what's that road on the west side? Instead of just traveling down it to visit Volcano Vista, You have to go all the way down to Centennial, which, it's a 3-hour drive. Rio Grande is the southernmost school in Albuquerque, so they're going to be happy about that. But that's a tough pull for Coach Griego down there.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the home games. See El Dorado, second district runner-up. They have a home game. Volcano Vista finished, third in that
Third
district?
in that district.
Third in that district. So a third-place finisher gets a home game ahead of the Ravens. Coach Orlando Griego is going to use that to fire up the boys, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, I would think so. And, with the amount of those teams, there was a couple that were hoping to get in. I know teams like Atrisco, since we're talking about Coach Griego, his former assistant now coaching at Atrisco, they were hoping that they could get a couple of late wins, a couple of something to get in. Yeah. So,
they had Rio Grande beaten on the ropes.
They did.
Bill Buckner error.
They
to
did
end the game.
It's the
That's
stuff.
how Rio Grande won that game. Aaron, could you?
Look
This
at
is
that.
next week's
Look at
weather.
that.
Could you throw that back up there, Jason?
Is that next
week?
week?
Is that next week? Is that sunny skies there? Is that rain over
this
the
is
South
current.
Valley?
This is the current.
See, I'm not as good
Well,
as you.
that's not rain. That's their tears for how they got.
Yeah, see this red here. This is the seeds going over the South Valley, and that's
No, that's Edgewood. The South Valley's right above me
Yeah.
right here. So as you can see,
it's not good.
the seeds are moving across, and they're not stopping in the South Valley.
No, not this year.
As you see at the end of this, they end up with the white, and that's not how they like to see it.
It's going to be an angry Ravens team. It's going to be a motivated
No,
Ravens
which
team.
I think does benefit them, right?
Right.
And Coach Griego, of all coaches, has been doing it for ages and ages. I mean, he was there before I was even, I think, in middle school. So
This is not the first time that the Ravens have been slighted either, right?
no, they don't, and that's what I was talking about earlier. Was every coach believes that they should have been rated a little bit higher. I think Rio Grande's got a very good argument for it.
If you just clicked over right now, you're wondering why do those guys have the weather on behind them, right? Like, what if you just clicked over right now? All right, folks, before we head out of here, one last reminder.
Wait, hold on. We didn't get to talk about the last game on the 5A.
Which was at the bottom. Well, I just assumed the Rio Rancho win, right?
Yeah, no, fair enough.
They're going to flush their tickets for the second round, right? Unless you want to make them.
No, I just thought
You
we
want
might
to
cover.
start us over here? Put the market back
I
there.
just wanted to mention how big it was for them. It looked like Cleveland might potentially run away with that district late on in the season. And with the Rio Rancho Rams coming in that last game of the season, they had one last chance to get it at home. I think it kind of started to stick with them. After the big loss to Zebra, they come back to Cleveland.
One final reminder, folks. These games are on the NFHS Network, so be sure to check the schedule on the NFHS Network. Get your tournament pass. We'll have those games for you at the Reardon Complex and wherever the sites are. So if you want to look at the entire schedule as a whole, NFACT.org. Best advice can be about parking at the Reardon Complex. Get there early.
Get there early.
Bring an extra couple $100 for tow money, just in case.
And bring lots of sunscreen.
That's right. So I want to thank Jason and Alden in the back. Aaron, always fun to do this with you. And we will be at the games next week. Good luck for everyone as they chase